It's tough finding time to write, I know. Progress can be slow, and an unfinished novel can feel like it's taking forever to get finished. That can lead to a loss of enthusiasm for the project. Eventually, you might set the project aside, or worse, give up on writing altogether. I'm not gonna lie, writing is hard work, and it can take years to master the craft of writing to the point where you're at a publishable level. But it's worth it if you have the heart of a storyteller within you. I found writing to be some of the most rewarding work I've ever done, even after 20-some years in writing and publishing. I still love the writing process itself and learning more about it, but also creating worlds and characters who get to do things that I'll never be able to do. Becoming a successful writer, even in today's environment, is definitely achievable if you're willing to put in the work. And there are things that can help, which is why I've pulled together these 10 tips, plus a bonus tip that I'm going to add at the end, so be sure to watch all the way through, that can help you stay focused, get energized, and finish that novel. Hi, I'm Beaulieu, and I'm a full-time fantasy and science fiction author. I have a dozen novels and over 20 short stories and novellas to my name, and I love talking about the craft of writing, which is why I started this channel, A Novel Approach. A Novel Approach is dedicated to helping you reach your writing goals by sharing tips, inspiration, and writing technique based on my 20+ years of experience in writing and publishing. We'll get into the main content in just a sec, but I wanted to mention that this video doesn't have a sponsor, but it is supported by people like you who like, share, and subscribe to the channel, and even buy me a coffee on coffee.com, link in the description below, or buy books from my website at quillings.com. Thanks so much for your continued support. It's because of you that I can continue to make free videos just like this one. And if you are new, be sure to subscribe to be notified when new videos come out on the various tips, tricks, and deep dive techniques I'm adding on writing. Okay, so first off, I want to set the stage. These tips and writing in general are going to take effort and time set aside on your part to get the writing done. The tips are going to help, but you do have to carve out part of your life for this to happen. It'll likely mean a shift in your daily or weekly routine, maybe a shift in your priorities in your life. If you're ready and willing to do that, writing a novel is a very achievable goal. Most modern publishers are looking for books that run about 85,000 to 100,000 words. And what that translates to in manuscript pages is something like 300 to 350 pages, somewhere in that ballpark. And so if you can write 1 page per day, or maybe 5 pages a week, you can easily get out 1 novel per year, including editing time to get that finished and submitted. So with that in mind, let's get to the list. The first tip, as I alluded to before, was to build in writing time into your life. The importance of butt-in-chair time cannot be overstated. You have to be in front of the keyboard, whatever form that takes for you, so that you can get in the right mindset to get the words out. You also shouldn't wait for the muse to strike. You should be dedicating time to your novel so you can make progress on a daily and a weekly basis. So figure out what that means for you, whether that's a daily routine, a weekly routine. I readily admit and understand that some people don't have time during the week to write, and so maybe it's a weekend thing for you, or maybe it's a late night thing, just a couple of days a week. Whatever it is, try to set that structure for yourself so you can get the writing done. Also, keep in mind that the people around you are going to want to help. Most people I talk to are really impressed that someone is trying to write a novel. If you can express your goals and the structure that you want to build around your life to the people around you, it will help you to reach those goals because they'll be helping you as well. And that leads me to tip number 2. You have to set some goals. It's one thing to have the time to write, but it's another thing to motivate yourself in different ways to get that writing done. Back when I was in the corporate world, we had a motivational speaker come in, and I don't remember a lot from that talk, but I remember this. We are at our most efficient when we have goals that are challenging for us, but that won't break us. And so the example that he gave was a brick on top of a table or a surface, and you have a rubber band attached to that brick. If you tried to pull that brick slowly, too much slack in the rubber band, it won't pull it very far, very fast. On the other hand, if you tried to pull that brick too quickly, that rubber band will break. And so this is a lesson for us. If you want to set different writing goals, make them reasonable, but in a way that will push you, that are challenging. And so back before I was writing full time, I would try to set aside 1 hour of writing time. And generally speaking, when I was in the groove of a novel, I could get out 1,000 words during that time. Now that I'm writing full time, I try to shoot for 1,500 to 2,000 words per day, one session in the morning, one session in the afternoon. But along with that, I know that life is going to invade at different times. And so I don't try to make it 7,000 words per week or 30,000 words per month. So again, before I was writing full time, I was looking to get something like 20,000 words per month. And that translated to a book in half a year, something like that. And what that means is I have 10 days of slack time to allow life to invade, to do other things, to get away from writing. It's always going to happen, and so we have to be ready for that. And so that was my way of challenging myself, but leaving room for life to invade, for me not to be at my best every single day, every single session, that sort of thing. And so that's my recommendation to you. Figure out some goals that will challenge you, but that fit within your lifestyle. We don't all have the same amount of time to write. We're not always as efficient as each other are, and so just figure out what your natural style is like and build your goals around that. Those first couple of tips were kind of draconian rule sort of tips, and this third one is more inspirational, I hope. It's to fall in love with your project, and to do so right from the outset. In my video on idea creation, I talked about pushing yourself until you find something that gives you juice, that makes you go, oh wow, that would be really cool to write about. You can watch that video for more info on that, but that's the kind of thing that you want, and I would say need for your own writing, because if you're not excited about that project, if you don't want to write about it, why on earth would readers want to read about it? And so pushing yourself to fall in love with the world, the characters, caring about what's happening to them at a real visceral level is so important to writing a story that the readers will sympathize with, but also getting you excited to write about it in the first place. It helps you get into the chair. It helps you make progress on the novel when you're excited to write about it. So the minutes and hours go by faster and you're more productive during that time. So fall in love with your material. And there's no one way to do it. There's no one formula. I mentioned in another video as well that this is about taste. It's about your personal taste. And listen to that. Listen to your taste and what you like out of fiction and what you want to write about. And that will help you to fall in love with it. Tip number 4 in a similar vein is to become your characters while you're writing. This is difficult, admittedly. Once you sit in the chair, you're going to be having the world come at you. You've just come off of something, and that's invading your mind. You're thinking about what you have to do the next day with work, with loved ones, what have you. You have other responsibilities. And so I admit readily that it is difficult to fall into this mode where you become your characters. When we read, we fall into a state of hypnosis, and we become the characters. We experience what they're experiencing, we see what they see, etc., etc. That's the mode, the state of mind that you want to be in while you're writing. One of my favorite pieces of advice on a slightly separate subject was from Chip Delaney at Clarion. I went to a number of years ago, and he was talking about setting and how sometimes if a setting feels thin or dry, not fully lived in, it is a failure on the part of the author to fully immerse themselves in that environment. And so I would contend that the same sort of technique can be used for immersing yourself in the characters. When you start your session, you should perhaps read what you have so far, right up to the point where you're going to be taking over in your new writing session, and allow yourself to fall into that state of hypnosis from your own writing. And that will help you slip into the mindset of the characters. If it's a new chapter with a new character, envision yourself in that place. Just take a couple of minutes and think about what they're doing. Think about where they've come from and where they're going and what they're trying to do. And it's probably going to be stressful. So get yourself into that mindset based on who they are, their emotional makeup, their desires, what the stakes are, all that kind of stuff, and see if you can't become that person. And then start writing. And that will really help you to draw out the emotions of the characters, which will translate to a better experience for the reader in the end. And it will help you write because you're more invested in it, and the words will tend to flow better and be better by the time you're done with that session. Tip number 5, remember that the first draft doesn't always have to be perfect. You are allowed to make mistakes. One of my favorite phrases in writing is just get the clay on the table, and you can work it once it's there. Said another way, you can fix it in post. Don't let your editor ruin your writing session by interjecting all the time. You want to get into the mode of writing, become those characters, write the words, and leave that other stuff until later. And I think in general, you'll find that things will flow faster. On a related note, Tip number 6 is forget about rules while you're writing. It's easy to become stiff in the writing process when you're thinking about too many things. So along with trying to immerse yourself in the characters, try to set the rules aside. Now, I think there are some exceptions. If you're trying to actively correct some kind of mistake that you normally make, like having wooden dialogue or too many dialogue tags or not enough internalizations that really show the emotion of the character, whatever it is, you might want to have 1 or 2 things in mind just to get better at those skills. But generally speaking, see if you can immerse yourself in the characters from that previous tip and then just let the words flow. Keep the writing process out of it. Think about it before you write, perhaps. Think about it during the editing process, of course, but try to let the words flow during those sessions. And since I mentioned the planning stages, if you craft a proper scene, some of these problems during the writing process will go away. So I'd urge you to watch my Mastering Fiction video on how to craft scenes so that the scene itself and its structure can help you write. Tip number 7 is to use some of the idle time during your day to help you out in your writing. One example is I'll mow the lawn and I'll put in these noise canceling earbuds, play a song without words so I can think a little bit, and I'll just kind of ponder a problem in my story. You might also use travel time if you commute to work, or maybe even shower time. It can help you overcome miscellaneous problems you're having with plot or deepening character or a twist in a piece of magic or science fiction or maybe a horror element or even a red herring in a mystery that you're writing. Now I say this, but it's also somewhat dangerous advice. You don't want writing to take over every single facet of your life. And in fact, if you get good at doing this, you'll find yourself disconnecting from people at times when you shouldn't be disconnecting from them. So if it's truly idle time, yeah, go ahead and use it for your writing. But if you're meant to be spending time with your family, your friends, be focused, be engaged, because that is the stuff that recharges you. We can't really write unless we're full of energy and full of life, right? So allow yourself to experience life, and that will become fuel for your fiction. Tip number 8. At the end of the workday, I strongly recommend acknowledging the progress that you've made, no matter how much it is. It may have fallen short, you may have gone beyond what you had planned. Either way, just acknowledge what you've done and feel good about it. Writing is a long process, and it's hard, and it's lonely. And I find that acknowledging these things, giving yourself small pats on the back, allows you to be energized from what you've done, and that sense of accomplishment carries over through the night and into the following day. So be sure to recognize what you've done and internalize that, and be proud, because you should be proud, and that will help you get that novel done. On a related note to number 8, tip number 9 is at the end of the workday, but I actually do this just before I go to bed. I think about what I've done, and more importantly, plan what I'm going to do tomorrow. I kind of set my goals based on where I am in the manuscript and what I've done and what's coming up to plan my next day. And what that allows me to do is disconnect and relax and go to bed and get good rest. Because there's nothing like being sleepy and tired and worried about your writing or other things to make you lose sleep and then not be efficient and creative and energized the next day. So I do that to kind of close out my day and get ready for the following day. Tip number 10 is when you become stuck, when you become lost, and it's going to happen. It's a multi-month process, maybe a multi-year process to finish a book, and there will be times when you just feel disconnected from the story and you don't have the same drive that you did to finish it. And so what I found often works is to go back to the things that gave you drive early on in the project and fall in love with your project all over again. I mentioned falling in love with it in the first place, and that certainly helps to get you started, but sometimes you have to reinvest and re-engage with the story and fall in love with it again. And so what you can do is go back to some of your earliest writing, some of your early character sketches. If you have a Pinterest board, which I highly recommend, with inspirational images, some of those will have been collected during those early days. And so just look at them and reabsorb, and it will pull you back to the place that you were at mentally when you were first thinking what this story was going to be like, what these characters were going to be like, what troubles they were going to be facing, that sort of thing. I also find that having a playlist of music, and I can't have words, so it's all like instrumentals, really helps. And I have one different one per project. And so sometimes I'll just disconnect and go for a car ride or a walk, and I'll listen to that playlist. And it will help pull me back to where I was in the beginning, which helps to get me back on track in the latter stages of the novel. So that's it. Those are my 10 tips for how to get that novel finished. Now, I mentioned a bonus tip. Not once did I mention to get away from your project, but I will admit that there are times when life becomes too much. when you no longer have the mental space to write. I hesitate to give this advice because I don't want you to give up too early, but if that happens, yes, get away from writing a couple of days, a week, a few weeks, whatever you need, and when you recovered, get back in the saddle and start writing again. I hope those tips help you get the most out of the writing time that you have available in your life. And this is just my take on things. You'll have your own experiences. You'll get tips from other authors. I hope you'll leave some of those tips and thoughts below because we can all benefit from them. As always, if you found this useful, I hope you'll like and share with other writers and writer groups. I have a ton more videos I hope to do soon, including another mastering fiction video, a Scrivener compile how-to, and more. So be sure to hit subscribe to be notified when those come out. Until next time, everyone, dream big, stay positive, and keep writing. Peace, everyone.